Good afternoon. Parliament is resumed. May I invite the Father of the House, the elected member for West Bay West, to grace us with prayers.
Let us pray. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of the Parliament now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundations, for the glory of thy name and for the safety, honor, and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our sovereign, King Charles III, William, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially we pray for the governor of our islands, the premier, the speaker of the Parliament, the leader of the opposition, ministers of the cabinet, ex-officio members, members of the Parliament, the Chief Justice and members of the judiciary, that we may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of our high office. All this we ask for thy great name's sake. Let us then say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And dear Lord, remember our families, wherever they may be, and keep a hedge of protection around them wherever they are, whether here, overseas. Bless them, and remember each one of us individually. Bless us, give us health, and in the days to come, in our nocturnal duties, help us, O Lord, to be true to ourselves and to the people we serve. So, Lord, bless us and keep us. Make your face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace now and always. Amen.
Please be seated.
Administration of oaths or affirmations.
None.
Reading by the Honourable Speaker of Messages and Announcements.
I just wish to say that this is expected to be the last sitting of the Parliament of this term, the 2020-2025 term, and to note the significance of that, and to simply wish all honourable members in this House the very best going forward. Madam Clerk.
Presentation of petitions.
None.
Presentation of papers and of reports.
None.
Questions to Honourable Ministers and Members of the Cabinet.
I have no answers.
Statements by Honourable Ministers and Members of the Cabinet.
I recognise the Honourable Premier.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as required by Section 11(6), thank you, of the Public Management and Finance 2020 revision, the PMFA, I make this statement to members of this Honourable House with respect to the exceptional circumstance transactions that we had approved by Cabinet for the Minister of Finance and Economic Development. with respect to its 2024 financial year that ended on the 31st day of December 2024. Such transactions were approved pursuant to Section 11.5 of the PMFA. Mr. Speaker, there were two financial transactions that the Cabinet approved for the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development pursuant to Section 11.5 in respect to the Minister's 2024 financial year. The first transaction, Mr. Speaker, was on the increase to the 2024 appropriation entitled OE 121, additional normal cost for pension plans of $895,000. The second transaction, Mr. Speaker, was a compensating decrease of 2024 OE 27 past service pension liability appropriation by the said amount of $895,000. Mr. Speaker, in November 2024, Cabinet approved an increase to the pension contribution rates under the Parliamentary and Public Service Pension Plan. Meeting the definition of an exceptional circumstance transaction, Mr. Speaker, the supplementary funding that was required for OE 121, additional normal cost for the pension plans, meets the definition of an exceptional circumstance, as the increase to the contribution rates were not known at the 2024 budget when it was being prepared in December 2023. The government could be exposed to significant financial risk, potential legal liabilities, and disruption of the service if it did not pay the increased contribution rates. And three, the increase to the contribution rates were approved in November 2024, making it impractical to request for the supplementary funding to be granted via Section 12 of the PMFA, as there were no planned meetings of the Finance Committee very late in 2024, nor are there in fact any planned meetings for this sitting. Mr. Speaker, the exceptional circumstance transaction did not result in an adverse effect on the government financial results, and that is seen as we are getting ready to put out new financials imminently. Nor are the principles of the responsible financial management, FFR, because the appropriation changes were merely a transfer of funds within the same operating expenditure category. An increase in one operating expenditure appropriation was mitigated by an equal reduction to another operating expenditure appropriation. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I thank you for allowing me to explain the exceptional circumstance transaction, which were in fact approved by Cabinet for the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development with respect to its 2024 financial year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The second Section 11.5, Mr. Speaker, that I am grateful for your permission to make this morning, and I thank you for the opportunity to bring to the Honourable House attention the exceptional circumstances appropriation changes which have resulted in the supplementary appropriation initiated by the Parliamentary Management Commissions for 2024. Mr. Speaker, on the 6th of June, Cabinet considered and approved the following requests for Section 11.5 appropriations in accordance with the Public Management Finance Act 2020 revision by the Parliamentary Management Committee. The appropriation lines was to satisfy the 2024 expenditure needs as follows. 1. Increase the 2024 appropriation to OE 150, repairs to the Parliament building, by $234,000. Increase 2024 appropriation to EI 88, equity injection to Parliament, by $8,000. By way of explanation, Mr. Speaker, Parliament was approved for the sum of $475,000 under EA 141, upgrades and repairs to the Parliament building in the 2022-2023 budget, and the sum of $222,000 under appropriation EI 88, equity injection for Parliament for various projects. Due to the time constraints with organizing the moving parts and logistics needed to complete for the larger projects and having to divert focus to unexpected issues beyond the control of the Parliament Management Commission, the Commission was unable to complete about half of the originally planned projects and budgeted repairs and upgrades to the Parliament building before the end of 2023. As such, the capital or CapEx funds were returned as required under the normal budget protocol, which goes back to central revenue. Due to the urgent need for the funding to finish the uncompleted projects from 2022 and 2023 budget period, the Commission requested via a cabinet paper emergency funding that was not set out in the 2024-2025 budget for the above-mentioned projects. The amounts requested were $8,000 to EI 88 and $234,000 to OE 150, respectively. The funds were needed, Mr. Speaker, for urgent projects, and they focused on the remediation to repair the severe severe damage to the House of Parliament's roof and building structure for $121,650, replacing the aged and leaking AC condenser unit with a unit and building management system for $47,550, upgrading the House of Parliament building internally with special care equipment and externally with a handicap ramp for $35,300, air handling unit and condenser BMS for the AC unit for $29,500, and repairing and updating the large and small committee rooms with proper cabinets and wiring to house the electrical components in each room for the aggregate sum of $8,000. That concludes my explanation, Mr. Speaker, for the utilization and exceptional circumstances which have resulted in the supplementary appropriations for Parliament by virtue of Section 11.5 for the fiscal year 2024. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Deputy Premier, I have a number of statements for you, or from you, but I only have one for the Minister for Heritage. You're not going to deliver it? Well, fine. You can go ahead. Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to make a statement to advise that the government has intention to increase the seafarers and veterans extra benefits and the long-term financial assistance by an increase of $250. This will mean that the long-term financial assistance payments will increase for a maximum of $1,250 to a maximum of $1,500. And Mr. Speaker, though this does not lie in the statement, I think it's an appropriate time to thank the original movers of the Progressives and the Leader of Opposition for their motion in the earlier part of last year requesting this, and after government's consideration, we decided to move forward. Mr. Speaker, as we are well aware of, the cost of living in the Cayman Islands continues to significantly impact many Caymanians, particularly members of the most vulnerable population. I have made several directives to the Department of Financial Assistance, which I explained here in Parliament during the last sitting in December 2024. So I will not get into the details of those initiatives here again. But suffices to say that the intention of those directives was to improve the ability of Caymanians to access financial support when they need it the most. Following on from the implementation of those measures, Mr. Speaker, I am happy to announce that the Cabinet is in support of my request to further support Caymanians in need by increasing the seafarers and veterans extratia benefits and long-term financial assistance by an extra $250 per month. This increase will be funded through Cabinet's approval for supplementary appropriations via Section 11.5 of the Public Management and Finance Act. It is expected that those in receipt of the extratia benefits and long-term financial assistance will see the increase in the February 2025 payout, and it will be retroactive from January of this year. Finally, Mr. Speaker, although I took responsibility for the portfolio of social development just a few short months ago, apologies, Mr. Speaker, let me start that over. Finally, Mr. Speaker, although I took the responsibility for the portfolio of social development with just a few months remaining before the upcoming election, I want to reiterate my commitment and the commitment of this government to supporting Caymanians, and the Cabinet and I continue to serve the country, and in particular to look out for the well-being of the most vulnerable members of our society. It is with this commitment that we continue reviewing ways to improve the social safety net for the people, for our people, and make decisions such as the one I have just announced today, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, that's the first statement. In another set of positive news, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to make a short statement on water sports zones. Mr. Speaker, we are well aware of the long-standing connection Caymanians have with the sea. And while many of our young people no longer go to sea on oil tankers, the tradition is carried on by many of those who are now successful boat captains, offering charters to visitors ranging from snorkeling to fishing and others. Another way that this significant area of our culture manifests itself is in our young people who take part in the sport of watercraft racing, Mr. Speaker. A number of young Caymanians have, over the years, established their names on the world stage, including such names as Jason Smith, Gary Whitaker, Jordan McLean, Klein Glidden Jr., and Ramjeet Brothers, Rashad Goff, and many others. And I dare say, Mr. Speaker, that Klein Glidden is the junior of a former member of Parliament. The practitioners of this sport have proven their dedication by investing significant sums into their watercraft and sport. They have, however, struggled to find an adequate location to train and compete. For these reasons, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to have partnered with my ministerial colleagues in the District of Northside and East End to establish water sports zones attached to the seaside of public parks in the districts, which are located at Kaibo Public Beach and at Collier's Beach in East End, respectively. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to announce that I have also agreed with my ministerial colleague from Bordentown East to establish a water sports zone at the new public beach in Pease Bay, Bordentown. These three locations will add to the South Sound location to provide prime locations to facilitate spectator participation and execution of the watercraft racing. Hopefully, Mr. Speaker, in the future we will have one in the West Bay District and Kimmenbrack. And I have the support of the good member from West Bay West and both members from Kimmenbrack. Mr. Speaker, because of the name that the Caymanian competitors have established internationally at the annual International Jet Sports Boating Association World Championships in Lake Havasu in Arizona, one of the nice lakes down that side, connections have been made which have resulted in international competitors traveling to the Cayman Islands to participate in local races. These connections have also created sports tourism opportunities whereby we can now host international circuit racing at several quality locations across Grand Cayman. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to supporting the growth of this sport locally as a healthy outlet for our young people to let off steam while developing their skills and creating sports tourism opportunities for the future. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the layout of these new water sports zones can be seen at the Port Authority website at www.caymanport.com. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Moving on to another statement. Mr. Speaker, I wish to make a statement as to the circumstances and reasons why, and just for the clerk, this statement has to do with the Financial Act. Public Management and Finance Act for Section 11.5. Mr. Speaker, I wish to make a statement as to the circumstances why I, as Minister of Social Development and Innovation, had to request the reallocation of appropriations within the 2024 budget under Section 11.5 of the Public Management and Finance Act 2020 revision. Mr. Speaker, last year, the Department of Financial Assistance had confirmed to the Ministry that its budget would be insufficient. Over the course of last year, the Department implemented new policy changes in alignment with the Financial Assistance Act 2022, including adding additional categories of service to those receiving financial assistance, providing additional stipend to those who are receiving the seafarers and veteran extra payments, and those in receipt of long-term financial assistance prior to the arrival of Hurricane Beryl, and delivered a one-time stipend to bus wardens and bus drivers who are employed by outsourced bus companies, but providing critical service to our education system. Mr. Speaker, when we were planning for the holiday season, a shortfall was identified in TP 41 of the financial assistance, for financial assistance, as well as in TP 47 for seafarers and veterans ex gratia payments. The supplementary funding was necessary and urgent to avoid disruption of essential services to at-risk Caymanian clients at the Department of Financial Assistance. Simultaneously, I don't know, I need some coffee badly today. Simultaneously, Mr. Speaker, it was identified that there were savings in the ITI 3, which is the appropriation for digital services, strategy, and business investment services. The savings in this appropriation was due to delays in the recruitment and implementation of major projects. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Social Development and Innovation requested to, 1, reduce ITI 3 digital services, strategy, and business investment services by $330,000, increase TP 41 financial assistance by $170,000, and increase TP 47 ex gratia benefits to seafarers and veterans by $160,000. Mr. Speaker, the aforementioned exceptional circumstances transaction, which was approved by Cabinet for the Ministry of Social Development and innovation during the 2024 financial period. Did not cause any non-compliance with the principles of responsible financial management. Mr. Speaker, I move now to another statement also having to do with Section 11.5. Mr. Speaker, I wish to make this statement as to the circumstances and the reasons why I, as the Minister for Social Development and Innovation, had to request a reallocation of appropriations within the 2024 budget under Section 11.5 of the Public Management and Finance Act 2020 revision. Mr. Speaker, based on the announcements of the honorarium of $2,000 to civil servants and statutory authorities and government-owned companies, the appropriation for Children and Youth Services, better known as the Keys Foundation, was increased in order to allow the Keys Foundation to award its employees with the one-time honorarium payment of $2,000 per employee in December of 2024. And I dare say, Mr. Speaker, it was well deserved. The honorarium payment was not anticipated, and therefore it was not possible for it to be absorbed within the current budget at the Keys Foundation. The supplementary funding was required in order to provide the honorarium, recognizing the persons who work long hours caring for and giving their hearts and souls to the children at the Keys Foundation. Simultaneously, Mr. Speaker, savings were identified in ITI 3, which is an appropriation for digital services, strategy, and business investment services. The savings in this appropriation was due to delays in recruitment and implementation of major projects. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Social Development and Innovation requested to reduce ITI 3 digital services, strategy, and business investment services by $88,000 and increase the CAY2 Children and Youth Services Foundation by $88,000, a neutral result. Mr. Speaker, the aforementioned exceptional circumstances transaction, which was approved by Cabinet for the Ministry of Social Development and Innovation during the 2024 financial period, did not cause any non-compliance with the principles of responsible financial management. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, a statement for the Cayman Islands tourism industry year-end performance. Mr. Speaker, it is my privilege to rise today to provide a brief update on the performance of the tourism industry now that the year-end results for 2024 have been received. Members may recall that at the last meeting of this Parliament, I provided a comprehensive results on the tourism industry performance for the first 3 quarters of the year 2024. In that statement, I outlined the positive growth that had been recorded in each of the industry's key performance indicators. I am pleased to report that the year, thank you so much. I am pleased to report that the year-end results are equally as positive, and the top-line synopsis is as follows. Mr. Speaker, in 2024, stayover visitation increased by 2% compared to the previous year of 2023, making another year of growth and resilience for this important sector of our economy. 2% may not sound like much, Mr. Speaker, but when we consider that the year 2024 hurricane season was particularly active, causing our airports to close at some of the busiest times for travel, the fact that the industry still been able to register growth is a noteworthy accomplishment. Looking at the numbers of 437,842 stayover visitors were welcomed to the Cayman Islands between January and December of last year, reflecting an increase of 558 individuals over the year 2023. Our core tourism markets showed steady growth throughout 2024, with strong U.S. regional performance, particularly evident in December of last year, which recorded the second highest visitation on record, surpassed only by December 2019. In fact, Mr. Speaker, March 2024 saw the second highest number of arrivals ever recorded in the Cayman Islands, with 57,040 stayover visitors, while December was our second best month of the year with 46 stayover visitors. It would be remiss of me to speak of this record-breaking success without mentioning that our islands repeatedly experienced record-breaking visitation from Canada in multiple months, while Europe markets also showed consistent growth throughout the year. You would be aware, Mr. Speaker, that the Cayman Islands is marked as a high-value, high-expectation destination. And in this regard, the industry's performance in the luxury sector did not disappoint. When this niche sector performs well, it means that our islands are successfully attracting more affluent, higher-spending visitors, which is in keeping with the ministry's philosophy of quality over quantity. In terms of contribution to the Cayman Islands economy, Mr. Speaker, proceeds from the accommodation sector have also registered positive results. The government has collected over $43.3 million in revenue from tourism accommodation tax between January and December 2024, which is $3 million more than we budgeted, even in the light of the active hurricane season and cancellations. Mr. Speaker, throughout 2024, the Cayman Islands have benefited from a notable increase in airlift. This has served as a game changer for the industry by providing greater accessibility to our shores from over 24 international gateways across the United States, the UK, Europe, Canada, and Latin America. Mr. Speaker, these results are just a few of many, many positives that have been achieved within the tourism sector in 2024. And candidly speaking, Mr. Speaker, they are a testament to the sound decision-making, exemplary commitment, and meticulous marketing and interpretation of the market data and trends by the staff within the Ministry and Department of Tourism. With that said, Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a moment to recognize the contributions of the dedicated civil servants within those two entities who have been the backbone of these achievements. Whether they are the drafting policies to make lives better, managing projects to empower entrepreneurs, showcasing our islands at trade shows, hosting journalists whose articles inspire travelers to choose us, or speaking at conferences to elevate our profile, their expertise and collective efforts have been instrumental to the industry's success. I also want to acknowledge the personal sacrifice that they make, spending significant amounts of time away from their spouses, their children, and their families to promote our islands to the world and encourage travelers to visit our beautiful shores. Oftentimes, we overlook or simply aren't aware of what it takes behind the scenes to keep the wheels of the tourism engine consistently turning. And so, I would like to say to all the staff in the ministry, and particularly the Department of Tourism and Ports, you are unsung heroes behind this statement of positivity and success. And I extend my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for the last 4 years, and particularly for the year 2024. As the late Steve Jobs, the visionary founder of Apple, once said, "Great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people." And we are fortunate, Mr. Speaker, to have a great team of people working on behalf of the Cayman Islands tourism industry. Mr. Speaker, while the stayover sector is thriving, it would be a derelict of my duties if I did not address the pitfall performance in the cruise sector. Passenger arrivals are still declining, and not just slightly, but at a staggering rate, month after month, on an ongoing basis. To illustrate the severity of the situation, Mr. Speaker, the projection for cruise passenger arrivals in 2024 forecasted a reduction of 100,000 passengers compared to the previous year. Sadly, the actual decline was closer to 200,000 passengers. If anyone had any doubts as to the seriousness of the situation within this sector, these results should help to underscore the reality that we are dealing with and the urgency with which it must be addressed. I will not go into any further detail on the cruise sector at this time, Mr. Speaker, as I've already fully ventilated my thoughts on this matter during the referendum debate. Instead, I will end this tourism update on a more positive note by revealing our stayover visitation and revenue collection targets for 2025. And they are to achieve over 15% growth in stayover visitation, equating to 504,470 visitors, and to generate $44 million in revenue from accommodation taxes and fees. Throughout this year, irrespective of who is at the helm of the decision-making for the tourism industry, I feel confident, Mr. Speaker, that the overarching goals will be to continue building the industry's success, addressing its challenges, and positioning the Cayman Islands tourism industry for a long-term sustainable growth. Mr. Speaker, I am also confident that through sound policies, strategic investments, and the dedication of our exceptional staff, those goals will be achieved. Tourism remains the lifeblood of our economy, along with financial services. And when the industry does well, our people do well, and the country does well. And at the end of the day, that is what we are all striving for. On that encouraging note, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all of the industry stakeholders for their participation and collaboration during the year and throughout my term in office. They too are deserving of recognition, and thanks to their contribution to the growth of our tourism industry. Should I have the honor of being re-elected to serve the good people of Georgetown Central and the privilege to serve again as the Minister of Tourism, I look forward to continuing the spirit of partnership and collaboration that have existed over this term, and to accomplishing even bigger and better results for this industry and our beloved Cayman Islands well into the future. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Personal explanations.
None.
Obituary and other ceremonial speeches.
I have had a number of requests from members for the opportunity to pay tribute to some of our outstanding citizens who have passed on recently. I first recognize the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I promise to be short because I know that was a long contribution just now, but I rise to pay my respects and condolences to all families in the Cayman Islands who have lost loved ones so far this year. But notably, Mr. Speaker, in the central Georgetown area, we've lost a few of our most notable members of our community. One in particular that I know most of us know, those who are elected in Georgetown, the good soul of Miss Natalie Adolphus, who was 90 years old. She was a very sweet and humble lady, and my deepest sympathies goes out to her 3 children, Jill McDonald, Anthony Lee Truman, better known as Chilliwilly, and Chris Truman. Please, I beg the community to give them your heart, prayers, and thoughts. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to send my heartfelt condolences to the family of the late Miss Lillian Archer. Please note that she was the mother-in-law or stepmother to one of our past members of Parliament, and she was my constituent. Mr. Speaker, also Mr. George McLean, who recently passed away in the period of around Christmas, just after Christmas. Mr. George McLean was a very prominent, strong individual in our community, originating from Banaca, Honduras. Himself and his many siblings became and is now founded and a foundation of Caymanians that they created. We know about the long-standing relationship with Banaca, Honduras, and the Cayman Islands, and his strength was a beacon for our Georgetown community and the development within the seafarers and farming community. I pray for his family as they deal with these challenges, time of such an amazing person no longer with us. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I'm sad to announce the passing of what I call an icon to the heart of Central, Mr. Dave Rocket, who passed away late last night. Interestingly enough, Mr. Speaker, he died on Bob Marley's birthday. And for those who would know Mr. Dave Rocket would have known that he was a person that saw himself as a proper Rasta man. I was with the family last night at the hospital, and I asked this honorable house to pray for the family of his all 9 children and his wife. He will definitely be somebody who will be missed from the Georgetown and the Cayman Islands. I know he's renowned all over, from West Bay, Georgetown, Bordentown, East End, Northside, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman. And he surely will be missed. Interestingly enough, as I was speaking about Miss Natalie, who passed away, he was with the family as they were mourning the passing of her. And just to announce, just late last night, he also passes. I ask that the good Lord keep his protection over this island, because we are losing so many of our iconic people that made the spirit and the fabric of the Cayman Islands. May their hearts be covered in these difficult times, and I pray for each and every one of their family members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I also recognize the Honourable Member for Bordentown West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker will be brief also, but I just wanted to pass condolences on to the Jervis family, or Ray Jervis from Ray's Photo Studio that was on Eastern Avenue, which I'm sure many Caymanian families have memories of having him develop the film. He passed away. Just want to pass condolences on to the family and ask everyone to recognize them and remember them during this time. His funeral service is actually tomorrow at First Baptist Church. And also, Mr. Speaker, one of our good constituents in Bordentown West, late great Charlie Watler, I just want to pass condolences on also for his service to this country, and most recently on the Cayman and Status and Protection Board, where he was appointed when this government had started out. But Mr. Charles was a good man, a decent man, a solid man, and we basically send condolences to his family for their loss at this time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to send my condolences to the families of persons in Bordentown East, and otherwise Mr. Baldwin Jackson's family passed away. Miss Mabel Solomon, Miss Mary Lou Dixon's family, Miss Verna Bird's family, and she has her sisters still here, Miss Corrine and Miss Faye. And also to Sir Dave Rocket, who was a good friend of my father, and Mr. Ray Jervis. May their souls rest in peace, and may the family find comfort. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Sport.
Just a member from Eastern, that's fine, sir.
No, you're more than just a member, you're the minister. It's just that the names change so often I struggle to keep up with it. The Honourable Minister of Youth, Sports, and Heritage and Home Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too would just speak briefly to offer condolences to those families in East End who have lost loved ones since we last met. But more recently, to the family of, we know her as Miss Arlene Conley, from East End and grown up as a child. No disrespect to my good friend, Mr. David White out there, but at the time she had the best fried chicken you could get anywhere on this island. And the pizzas and hamburgers, but she was a staple in our district, especially on weekends, providing us an avenue to get some of that fast food, a way we could hang out. But also to the family of the late Thomas Dixon. I think many of us in here know him as Pom Pom. He passed away after a short illness, and I'd like to offer condolences to all of those families on behalf of the District of East End. Thank you, sir.
The Honourable Member from West Bay South.
Afternoon again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Briefly, on behalf of my colleague, the member for West Bay Central, she's actually absent now to be with a grieving family of Miss Jolie Manderson at Bawden's right now for the loss of her daughter, gone too soon, Miss Alexandra Brown. And that's sometimes what others may not understand, similar to your comments last night, Mr. Speaker, about us being a fraternity. Because those are the things all of us have to do, and you don't do it for political favor. You do it because the family actually wants you there as the pillar of the constituency. So Ms. Kathy didn't go for political reasons. It's just because you're trying to be a rock for the family in their time of grief. And Ms. Brown is gone too soon, particularly when it's awfully hard when the child proceeds in death before the parent. And on a similar note, on behalf of the member for West Bay Central, the passing of Miss Ruby Hides, who's actually was the mother of the member for West Bay Central's current contender. And that's where politics has to be put to the side. And it was a good send-off Miss Ruby had. I was there. You just have to be there for each other and remember at the end of the day, it's one community. So with that, and for all the others who have lost loved ones in West Bay since the last time the House has met, condolences and rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to publicly share condolences to the family of the late Joseph Berkeley McLean, known to many as Junior McLean. That was a funeral that took place yesterday. We know that when a loved one is lost, it's one thing during that grieving stage. There's not a particular time. You don't even know when, because it happens at various times. But even though it was concluded, one chapter was passed on yesterday with the service and the burial, the true healing, moving on with life, really starts once you turn your back at that graveside. I want to publicly send all of my love and regards to Miss Linda, to Kyle, Kevin, and all of the grandchildren and extended family. Mr. Junior has played a big role in agriculture. That was his love, and definitely dealing with slaughtering and that sort of stuff. But it's just that unique bond. It's a love story that many of us search for. They were kindred spirits, and I know Miss Linda will need a lot of love, which she has, not only by extension in the Prospect constituency community, but definitely for who she is to so many around the Cayman Islands. I share also publicly and extend condolences to the family of Mr. Charlie. He was a huge supporter of mine, even though he's not a constituent of Prospect. Tagging on to what my honourable colleague and friend West Bay South stated, when a loved one in Cayman is lost, just the dynamics of who we are as a people, everyone feels it. And for the amount of people that have passed since we've last met, I share as well publicly my sincere condolences to all of those persons. Thank you.
The honourable member for Savannah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this morning to offer heartfelt condolences to the many loved ones that have passed on, and just want to say that to all those that are grieving and who are experiencing grief today, send out warm condolences to the family of the late Mr. Junior McLean, Mrs. Jones Deere, Mr. Charlie Watler, Mrs. Mabel Solomon, a lady who used to sew mine and my sisters and my brother's clothes when we were all attending school, Mr. George Warren, that's Mr. Altie Thompson's nephew, Mr. Ray Jervis, Mrs. Rosie Overton, and Mrs. Joan Lawrence, and so many more. And today, Mr. Speaker, I know the family of Dave Rocket is feeling the sting this morning. And Dave's mom, Miss Pam, have endured so many losses. And I'd like to send out heartfelt condolences and love to her and her family, and offer any assistance I can provide to them. Love and regards to all who feel this sting today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to extend condolences? The honourable member for Newlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to add my condolences to all of those, the families of all of those that have been mentioned by other members earlier. I think the truth is that we live in a small country, and the web of connections are always extensive and across various constituencies and through various family members. So each loss, I think, touches all of us. Mr. Speaker, in particular, I would join in extending condolences to the children of Mr. Charlie Watler and his extended family as well. Mr. Charlie was a man that contributed and had such a positive perspective and attitude to this country that he loved so much. Particularly, Mr. Speaker, he was always concerned about the opportunities for young people in this country. And he of course, had an extensive record of service in relation to the various immigration boards that has been in place. I think at one point he was titled the father of the immigration boards. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to also extend public condolences to the family of Ms. Erna Worms. Mr. Speaker, the period over which some of these people have passed away, the holiday period, has always made it very difficult. Mr. Charlie, for example, passed away just before Christmas. Just after Christmas, sorry. Miss Erna passed away on Christmas Day, at a time when her family was about to come together to celebrate Christmas with her, which she was so much looking forward to. Mr. Speaker, she was, of course, a very interesting lady with the talent to be involved in things that were roles, really, that typically related to the activities of men. So, for example, she was an amazing car painter, and she perfected her art and techniques in relation to that. I remember seeing her coming out of the paint booth when I was a little boy, being driven by and looking over, and I saw her taking the mask off and unwrapping the clothes and the painting gear, and struck by the fact that it was this slender, lovely-looking woman who was coming out doing this. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to extend condolences to the family of Ms. Joan Steer as well. My colleague from Savannah has mentioned her already. She was a long-serving member of the civil service of the Department of Agriculture, and she contributed so much in that area, particularly in relation to pest controls and helping agriculture continue to develop their crops and productivity. Mr. Speaker, I remember just a couple of weeks before she passed away, she had been at our community office asking or seeking to help wrap children's gifts, because that was the kind of person she was. She just contributed so much in so many ways within the community and otherwise. Extend also condolences to the family of Miss Arlene Connolly as well, mentioned by Miss Heather, the member for Savannah, Mr. Junior McLean, mentioned by others. Of course, Mr. Rocket as well, Dave Rocket. If you don't know Dave, then you haven't lived in Cayman. So, the Minister for Tourism mentioned that he was renowned across the country, and that's certainly true. And I extend condolences to his family and his children in particular. Mr. Speaker, I can't recall whether I did this previously, but I will take the opportunity to publicly extend condolences to the family of my dear cousin Dwight Panton. who passed away a few months ago, several months ago now, back into 24. But as I said, I don't recall whether he was mentioned previously. But I raise it now because his service is scheduled for February 21st at 3 p.m., I think it is, at Emsley Memorial Church. And I suspect that there may be many members who might be interested in attending that service. Mr. Speaker, as you will know, Dwight was a lawyer, he was a father, and he contributed significantly over the years as well in the areas of the immigration boards. And I think, in fact, he had served as chairman of the I can't remember which one it was, whether it was a protection board or whether it was a later variation of one of those boards. But he served on that board for quite a number of years. And I just want to raise a matter that I think deserves our attention, because anybody who knew Dwight would never guess that he was in a situation, or was discovered to be in a situation, where he didn't actually have Cayman status, even though he served on those boards, making decisions and contributing for such a long time. That is something that has happened to so many of our Caymanians with roots that we could never ever deny. And I don't know, I've had conversations with the Deputy Governor in the past about trying to address these types of scenarios, because his was not unique. And if we can ever find a way to address these types of issues for our sons of the soil, our daughters of the soil, who find themselves in this situation, I think we must. So, Mr. Speaker, I extend condolences to particularly his children, Dylan and Fraser, and his sister and brothers. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity, and I extend God's comfort and blessings to all of those families today who are grieving.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise briefly to join in offering some condolences on behalf of the Progressives and the official opposition to Ms. Pam and the family for the passing of Dave Rocket, who we all knew. And you heard the member from Newland saying if you didn't know him, you don't know Cayman. But not everybody knew Dave for the person that he really was, the heart that the man had. And I can tell you that many, including my nephew, many young Caymanians look forward to catching his bus to town. If they had money or not, it didn't matter to him. They could always pay him later. And he enjoyed the conversation with them. And many may have thought that it wouldn't be positive conversations, but they were extremely well. My nephew messaged this morning being very upset about it. So he obviously had an impact in his life. And he will be missed, and Miss Pam, Miss Pam, has been a part of our family from the time that I joined. And so our prayers and thoughts are with them today. Also, Mr. Speaker, I was shocked to find out a couple of weeks ago, and I remember asking, I think it was over the holidays, may have been New Year's Eve, about a person being found deceased on South Church Street, and I was shocked to find out that it was our good friend and member of the football world, Christopher Johnson, known to us as Bolo. and Middle Road at Middle Road, yes. And so unfortunate and tragic, a young man my age. And our thoughts and prayers are with the Johnson family at this time as well. And I just want to mention Mr. George Warren. George, we all knew him from A.L. Thompson's, Georgie, and sending out our condolences to the Geiger and Thompson family on his passing. And also last week, Mr. Benjamin Wright, who passed away over the Christmas, but the service was last week. He had a wonderful sending off, and those of us who know Mr. Wright from Watlers Road, or Dog City as we call it, and remember the days when he was a cast man. He did all of the parking blocks and ornamental yard figures, fountains and statues and stuff. And I think as you drive around the older communities of Cayman, you can still see his work in the patios and in the outdoor yard furniture, if you want to call it that. So just thought I would bring our thoughts and condolences to the Wright family as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to offer condolences? If not, I'll take the luncheon suspension, and when we return, we will commence the traditional, how shall I phrase this, swan song. Thank you, AG, of members. Because I was under the mistaken impression that we were finishing last night, I've done mine already, so I can listen to you all. We'll resume at 2:30.